Hey there! Today, we are talking about rock and roll. When we say rock and roll, we specifically mean the era that lasted from approximately 1955 to 1960, the first period of popularity for this music. Join me in attending a rocket race where we'll explore the important concepts, songs, and people involved with early rock and roll music. There are three main genres that contributed to what rock and roll would become: R&B, country western, and the blues. R&B, or rhythm and blues, represented as an attendee with a red and blue electric guitar, was a genre mainly performed by African Americans that featured electric guitar, brass instruments, saxophones, bass, and the piano. Country western, shown here as an attendee supporting a cowboy hat and acoustic guitar, was another genre that many rock and roll musicians had grown up listening to. This genre was primarily created by white musicians and featured acoustic folky sounds. Lastly, the blues, which we include as an attendee with an all-blue guitar, stands out as a source of inspiration for all of the artists around it. By the 1950s, blues music was mainly associated with American cities. This music often featured African American men who both sang and played electric guitar. This music was often slower in tempo and utilized blues notes, or bent notes that altered the scale the song was using. At our race, you see two spaceships tied for first. These represent the two songs that competed for the place as the first rock and roll single. The older of the two is shown by the ship with 88 on its side, representing Rocket 88 by Ike Turner. The ship next to it has a clock on its side, representing Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and the Comets. One main difference between these two records is that Rocket 88 was released on a small record label by an African American band, while Rock Around the Clock was released on a major record label by a white band. This race also involved which song was more influential to other artists, but also about the complicated relationships surrounding race, specifically the industry's preference for white performers during these years. Part of this story surrounds the record labels songs were released on, and this is tied to the history of race records. Race records were often smaller recording labels created by and for African American artists. Race records are shown here as fresh, hot records being sold at a food truck. Almost none of these records could be heard on the major radio stations in the country, all of which mainly played white artists. There were black radio stations, but they were smaller and were often not heard in much of the country. Since Rocket 88 was a race record, even though it is an earlier recording, it had a small audience. Rock Around the Clock, though, became a sensation that was much more responsible for popularizing rock and roll. The subject of race is central to both rock and roll as a genre and the broader context of the time period we are looking at. This is why we've kept the race theme for this video. Our rocket race includes two other contenders who were both major contributors to early rock and roll. The first of these is Elvis Presley, whose ship has his hairstyle and sunglasses on its side. Elvis was known for a style of rock and roll called rockabilly, a blend of R&B and country music that was mainly played by white musicians. Rockabilly achieved a level of popularity that black artists couldn't attain at this time because of the effects of racism. The other ship has a berry on the side, and this represents Chuck Berry. Known primarily for his electric guitar playing, Berry sang about problems that faced teenagers, such as school and cheating girlfriends. He did this because teenagers played a very important part in the popularity and spread of rock and roll in these early years. That wraps up this race. We hope you've enjoyed the event.